Good morning and welcome to Deep Dives with New Perspectives. Michael Bartlett and Merrylin LeBlanc. How are you this morning, Merrylin?
I'm awake. Oh, gee. Yeah.
I know we have a set topic today, but I'm just like, I think the thing I've just been sitting with is just that focus of energy from Taurus to Scorpio, just that single side of the zodiac that's getting, one half of the zodiac that's getting all the activity.
Oh,
From
I see what you're saying. Because I
yeah.
was going, well, there is Uranus in Taurus, but
Mhm.
what's in Scorpio and where are you? You mean
Scorpio, I
that
think, is
whole
done now,
focus,
right?
that whole focus, it's mostly in the outer signs except for Taurus.
Right.
The more relational collective signs, which is, yeah, I mean, why should we be surprised about that? There's a couple, at least a couple, probably more huge issues, climate change being one of them, and the whole political scene that seems in not only in our country, but going toward this kind of oligarchical, um, plutocracies, et cetera. And I mean, Americans, wake up. Jesus. I mean, the people I associate with, but we're all in our own little social circles. But if you've studied history, we've seen this scene before.
Same scene, slightly different tune.
Yeah. And if you believe in past lives, well, tap into some of those past lives. And they
Yeah,
go,
remember the
oh,
consequences. Yeah, I mean, now and then I'm reading these things about, all these Republicans that are now, starting to seek local offices so that they can start overturning elections. And it's just like,
well, I heard an interview. I can't remember who it was, but it was brilliant because they said if you really want to change the political scene, you have to start locally because habits get formed. And many of us aren't really tuned in. Well, we get tuned into the federal level because of the news, mostly if you watch any of the big news outlets. But on a day-to-day basis, we're affected by what happens in our communities, what happens in our townships, our cities. And then, somewhat on the state level, depending on the size of your state and the population, and depending on the type of job you have, but the local level is where all of this begins. So it's not surprising. The Republicans have been very smart in their messaging,
strategic.
very smart.
There's,
But now
I
you
would
kind
call
of,
it strategic.
um, yeah, strategic, right? Smart, I'm not so, yeah, because smart makes it sound like it's intelligent. And
No, I mean, they've got a plan and they've been sticking to it. And the sad part with the Democrats, they've either been in a reaction or oblivious to what the Republicans are doing. And there's not really a quote plan. The
right.
Republicans they really do have a plan, and it's slowly being carried out. I mean, we're seeing it played out.
And so this begs the question of, it's sort of like military stuff, being brilliant at warfare, which is, for historians who study wars throughout history, it's kind of a brilliance kind of a thing. But is that really a good thing?
Well,
I mean, is it really something that we should all have goals towards? Should we all be, shaking the Democratic Party and saying, wake up and be more like them in strategies?
Or should we be forming new parties and creating a more representatives of our diversity? I mean, what's going to be interesting is, I mean, this falls in line of the moral majority and other things. It's like these, it's going to be these smaller groups of people that are coming from fear base, and that's what's running all this, the fear of change. They don't want change. They don't want.
Well, the unfortunate thing is where we're at on this planet, where this planet is going. if you're afraid of change, you just as well check out now. Because we've been talking politically, but talking actually nature wise. I mean, look at just look at the news this week. Look at those tornadoes and what happened, across parts of the Midwest and in Kentucky.
Horrific, just horrific.
Yeah, and the hurricanes that we've been having down south, and
the fires
in the West and elsewhere.
It's
that is that kind of change is based on what the climate scientists are saying is only going to accelerate unless we do something drastic, which individuals may be doing it, but I don't think the critical mass is yet doing drastic measures.
Well, it makes me think, it makes me think of what was going on in Johannesburg in regards to their water, that, there was this, they were realizing they were getting close to the end of their actual availability to provide water for the city of Johannesburg, South Africa. So they put a year out and they started warning people, billboard signs, advertising all over the place. And people actually, because what they were saying is like, if this keeps up, if you continue to use water in the way you're using it, you will have to go to the well water at the center of your town and get water. And what was amazing is slowly but surely people started conserving, and the dates started getting pushed back for when they were going to have to do this, and the date's still being pushed back. So that to me, and I get a little bit of goose pimply with it, but it's like there has to be, humans need that. We're animals at essentially in a way, right? We need that kind of smack across our nose that says, hey, wake up.
Your job too much. The thing that's interesting right now is it doesn't sound like we're talking astrology, but in fact we are, because we're talking about structures, which is the sign of Capricorn. And we've had Pluto in Capricorn for quite a few years and continuing for another couple of years in the sign of Capricorn. Pluto, destroys, takes away. That's part of its process if change is absolutely called for. It does it in our personal lives, it does it in our social lives, it does it in our national or earthly Mother Earth, and it's telling Mother Earth, it's telling all the inhabitants of Mother Earth, things need to be changed on a major scene, and a lot of that is the Pluto in Capricorn. We have another thing going on this week in Capricorn that's significant. This coming,
it ties into our values, which is what we've been speaking of, right? All along. There's like, what are our values?
This Saturday, believe it's early morning. Yes, this Saturday, East Mountain Time, it's 3:36 a.m. The planet Venus will go retrograde in Capricorn. And Venus only does this every 580 days that she go retrograde, or retrograde in the sign that it's going through. There's an amazing patterns about that. We might get to that later, but just about the Venus retrograde in Capricorn, think about all kinds of relationships that we have, and think about how we deal with Mother Earth, because Venus is said to control those areas. She deals with our different kinds of relationships, not just the kind that's marriage and love and that sexual union, perhaps. It's not just those. It's also, our judicial system, not the laws, but justice. Venus is more about justice per se.
Kind of like maybe more the ethics of it, the way.
Well, that's the Jupiter side of it. Jupiter gets into the laws and the ethics, and Jupiter and Venus operate very nicely together. Actually, I'm
thinking of values when it comes to Venus, and so I'm thinking values,
personal values. Yes, yeah. Then and those values come out of her sense of the earth and what you know, how to live in balance with the earth. And yeah, and so I've been looking at that because this coming week on Moonwise, that's my topic, Venus retrograde. And I kind of wondered, you know, every 4 years, and during approximately a period that's almost 100 years, not quite. I think this was in the 80s. And this started, I forget exactly, it overlapped with when Venus was going retrograde in Aquarius, which was a time. The reason I'm so focused on this is that I was born when Venus was retrograde in Aquarius.
Yeah.
And she's no longer doing those retrogrades in Aquarius. She's when the retrogrades with Venus, they actually go clockwise, so they go back through, you know, like in a retrograde motion through the zodiac signs. So she's been doing the Saturn or Capricorn retrogrades, you know, more recently, going back every 8 years. But she also, when she you know, the Venus has two kinds of meetings with the sun, what we call conjunctions. This one coming up on Saturday is a retrograde one, and it's the beginning of the cycle. She also connects with the sun when she's direct. And 4 years from now, not 8, when she has the next retrograde in Capricorn, but 4 years from, not, it won't be 8 years till she has the next retrograde. Every 580 days, she goes retrograde, but in 5 different signs. And anyway, 4 years ago, she's been doing the other conjunction with the sun, also in Capricorn. She does that with the other suns too, so that we end up having, you know, a certain area of a chart being very pronounced. And with her, that every 4 years, whether it's direct or retrograde, she's been punctuating the area of Capricorn. And so last night I was looking back just in the news a little bit, and you know, that was when the Mueller report was going on, which we never quite, for other reasons, saw all of it. There were parts of it that, you know, didn't come out into the public eye during those impeachment hearings. But I can't help but think about how this cycle too is dealing with the structure of our government and the preservation of our government. You know, we've had other presidents impeached, but the content of the impeachment, I don't believe, I'm kind of quickly flashing back, hasn't been literally about the possible, let me call it a coup d'etat, you know, like what we've seen in Myanmar or other places around the globe. It hasn't come that close, but what we're seeing here now is we're in as a country, as a government, we're in a very fragile state, extremely fragile state. And I believe that the Venus retrograde, and I still need to do a little bit more research on this, has much to say about that. And partly, you know, because of the fact that Capricorn covers those governance structures.
And we have to add in the power of it being involved with Pluto. I mean, it just had a new conjunction. And so now it's dipping back over that point and going back in, you know, over the part it already had. So, I mean, there's something that's really reviewing. I mean, you know, when we think about Roe versus Wade, right? I mean, I think, is that one of the examples that you were going to use as far as like that? I mean,
no, I hadn't planned on it, but thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just so, I'm frankly like beyond flabbergasted that this topic is even up for consideration in any way, shape, or form in this day and age. I mean, the Europeans just look at us and laugh. I mean, this is something that, this is something that toddlers do in a playground. This isn't something you do for adults in a society. You don't treat 50% of your population this way.
It's all about control. I mean,
And here's Pluto.
they'll claim there's a moral issue or there's a religious issue. I mean,
But that's
please.
subjective. I mean, people have to understand the difference between subjective versus, I mean, and this is really the Aquarian thing, and that's that Capricorn moving into Aquarius, I think, too, right? That different kind of Saturn getting activated. It's like, okay, now that we've, built all the roads and have the industries and we have everything to provide for people, how are we going to manage one another in a way that makes everyone feel equal, regardless of, birthright, hello from coming over from Leo.
Even beyond birthright too is voting rights. I mean,
I'm talking about the inherent wealth that some people are inheriting automatically, and therefore are having like an experience, from day one that is like nothing like anything else that anyone else is having on the planet.
say a little more about that. I'm not quite.
The 1%.
Oh,
the
the
amount
one.
of wealth that's being transferred generationally, so that there are individuals who do not even know what the meaning of responsibility and work are and what other people's lives are.
Okay, in terms of inheritance. Yes, yes.
The entitlement.
The entitlement. Yes, yes.
I was thinking about that, that idea of like the I deserve it, that idea, I think that I started hearing like in the 90s, this kind of like weird ego gratification, like, oh, well, I deserve it. And I'm like, why? Because you've shown up and been doing what you're supposed to do as a human being?
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, yes, but like, I don't know that it deserves this aggrandizement.
Yeah. And that's more of a Pluto thing, whether Pluto's in Capricorn or anything, and a Scorpio as far as zodiac signs go, territory. But yes, it's definitely, it definitely comes into the structure of our society at this time. And I also think about Saturn and I'm thinking of the Declaration of Independence chart, Saturn up there in Libra in the 10th house, defining our governmental structure, and Libra being a cardinal sign like Capricorn, there is this kind of there's a square energy, so there is this tension, and what side is gonna prevail. I don't want to use the word win. We've seen this more and more, and this goes to Jupiter. We've seen this more and more in American politics, like it's some sports game.
I mean, in order to get people's attention, I think they kind of have to make it that way. I mean, that's why I think Trump was able to garner the attention he got, because I mean, he basically went in there like, a wrestler,
like football game, kill him. Oh, yeah, right.
But I mean, like one of those really big showy kind of things that are put on, is basically gladiatorial. I mean, it's not political anymore. It's spectatorial, right? It's meant for the spectators.
Oh, and wasn't that what we saw when you look at history and you see movies about the Roman Empire? This is what we saw at the end of the Roman Empire. Wake up, America. Oh, it isn't really funny, but in a way, what else? The other alternative I don't want to do, that's cry and.
Right. Well, I mean, I think I think guns, actually, what I was really excited to see, everyone's, I mean, it's so hard because I think so much of our news is negatively driven, and it kind of has to be because what they found in studies that if you don't make it negative, people basically won't watch. And, for those of us who want to see like positive stuff, like, if we want to see positive stuff, we'd be watching it, But, oh, shoot. Oh, in California, they are deciding to model a law just like Texas did with its abortion law, but towards guns. So so like, why not? This is smart, here, why not? So maybe it's, I guess anyone can bring a lawsuit against any of these individuals who are selling guns to people who shouldn't be selling them. I don't know what the structure is going to be, but whew. And I mean, in California is litigation wonderland anyway. So I mean, this is like
this kind of vigilanteism that is not appealing.
But what I like about it is like what they're saying is like, hey, if you're going to attack us on abortion laws, then, we're going to attack you in the gun thing. And it's like, if you guys are going to play this game of like, where you think you can have control over it, then, ipso facto, if this law works over here for this reason, then it's going to have to be able to work over here for that reason. So either the benefit is it gets upheld or it gets turned over, and so does the one in Texas, which would be really wonderful. Right?
Yeah,
Well,
well,
it's all based on precedence when it comes to law. So, that's what's really interesting about it. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what, so like what you said, it's Saturn in Libra. We've had this, one of the things that Libra is really great at is presenting a perfect picture of harmony. The truth is, it's always in a state of flux. It's always in a state of trying to balance and harmonize things. And what we're starting to see in our country now is that things have really become skewed in a lot of ways.
they've
I'm
always been skewed, but not blatantly so. Yes.
Yeah, in a way that I think we can no longer ignore, I think is what it is. I mean, we've been soaking in this for long and so long and been holding these beliefs of like what culture looks like and what race means and all that kind of stuff. And now we're all being awakened to the fact like, hey, we're all brothers and sisters. Let's find a way to get along with one another. And we're finding all these roadblocks to do it, because ultimately there are certain people who just think that if they do this, if they allow for equality, they somehow lose power. And it's such a childlike understanding of what power is.
Yeah.
Put them in a room and give them their little virtual control panel that says like that they're killing people or doing whatever it is, and let them do that in eternity and leave everyone else alone. Give Bezos a room that feels like a space chamber, then make him feel like he's out in space for the rest of his eternity. Give him that gift he wants, and then leave the rest of us alone so that we can take care of the planet, which is needed right now.
Well, you know what you bring up with that kind of scenario, for me anyway, is on a soul level, what are we doing here? And this depends on your spirituality and what you believe about afterlife or no afterlife. And a lot of people are having near-death experiences that seem to really support an afterlife, which then brings up the question of, and this is related to free will as well. We're here to work out some kind of energy, and we have choices. We can, some of us have been asked to do certain things, but we can abort it anytime. I'm not talking about having a child.
It's an abdication, like how Queen Elizabeth father got the job.
And some people say, they've had many past lives. You might think, well, some people become addicted to, oh, it's beautiful Earth, I want to go back there again. Or, I'm still working on this. I mean, but I start thinking about people like, with that kind of belief system about afterlife. I think about people like Trump and some of these Republicans who are, and other people too, but and go like, what is their, let's call it a contract. What is their contract about coming to Earth at this time?
To be honest, I think part of Trump's contract, and the reason why he's still, quote, not gotten caught, is I think he's playing an incredible role for the collective. He is showing so many of us just the absurdity of our system and what you can actually literally get away with, and no one can really do anything about it.
I need to punctuate that the contract here, that's a Venus thing as well. Venus retrograde will have us going back all over all kinds of contracts within our governments, contracts in our own personal lives. And, for some of us, it may be the contract of our soul about being here, like in describing it. And the system stuff is the Saturn and in the United States chart in Libra, one of Venus's areas. So all of this is very Venusian in some ways, looking from an astrological perspective.
And he has Mars conjunct his ascendant with the star Regulus there. I mean, there's this way that he has this incredible will that I think, he and Leo, I think also is like a brilliant actor. I mean, he's really, he came up with a character a while ago, and he's just been polishing that character ever since. And you know what? It's resonating with a significant amount of the collective, enough that, you know, for those of us who aren't on the same side as him, I think it's great that he's showing us all the ways it doesn't work. When I think like all the people he's not paying, all the lawsuits against him, it's like how this man is not in jail, how this man has not been assassinated yet, how, you know, I mean, but he's got Mars on his ascendant. And I have to say, in my research of Mavericks, Mars on one of the angles, especially the ascendant in the midheaven, hello, I have one on the midheaven, is a really big indicator of, like, you know, losing your head. In one form or another.
I don't think anybody's gonna argue. Most of the people that in our circles probably won't disagree with you on that. But I'm bringing this back to Venus. Yes. And the retrograde, because when we're talking also when she goes retrograde is when she meets up with the sun and begins a new cycle with the sun.
Morning star.
And this is in Capricorn, and that there's legal proceedings going on with Trump as you bring him up. And there was something else that flashed that was related to it. Oh, his banking dealings. Well, banking is a Venusian behavior. And so during this retrograde cycle, I think that there's going to be more information about the legal processes that have, you know, there's been suits filed against Trump by the city of New York, I believe, or the state of New York. I haven't followed it closely. And I think that, you know, more information on that level. And then there, our Congress has been going through the January 6th information, and it has been able to get his, you know, the Supreme Court, I guess, ruled that they can get his communications on January 6th with people in his cabinet. And yeah, so
not gonna look
this
good.
is going to be an interesting Venus on a political level, you know, on a,
well, again, it's going back through
structures and systems, the judicial system, the Congress, etc. It's going to be a lot of interesting information coming out.
Well, again, it's going back over Pluto. I mean, it's like what I see is like you're in your garden and you're raking back the earth, and oh my God, there's a body there. That to me is Pluto, Venus retrograde. What, you know, like what you just said, is the revelation of that which has been kind of buried, or that which hasn't been seen, you know. So it's gonna be really interesting to see. And then because of the popularity of things he's garnered, and because of all these other things, what will be the reaction of these steadfast Trumpsters who will want to react because of it? I mean, it's a very interesting time period. And then you have the whole thing with COVID, and the fact that in Republican communities, it's like 20% are vaccinated, whereas in Democratic communities, it's 90% are vaccinated. I mean, it's like it's killing off their own constituency, or are they going to get a herd immunity?
Well, that's a whole other. You're gonna.
But that's Venus Pluto. To me, that's Venus Pluto also. I mean, there's this thing of like, you know, there's
the connection activity and terms of the relationship, but
shared values.
But the thing is, we're in a catch-22. This is kind of like Venus Libra with the scales,
right?
Because the vaccinations are creating the variants. Yeah, so it's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, you know, kind of thing. So at least take the odds of being safe.
Yeah, I mean, I would, at least to me, I don't want to be in the hospital, and and if I can take a shot and don't die, then that to me is a good thing. But, and also to protect the people around me.
Right. Yeah.
Those are the main things. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. You just take the precautions you can take, and not, but I know initially with the vaccinations, I've encountered people in my circle of community, you know, besides you, who, you know, were talking as if they thought they were completely safe from catching this. And I would have to remind them there's no 100% immunity involved here. And we're seeing that more and more, you know. It's what else can we do? We ought to take precautions. I'm not saying don't.
Yeah,
don't.
Venus retrograde is like, it really gives us the opportunity to kind of review things. Like, what is it, what is true for you, especially if you have, Venus in any of the cardinal signs, if it's in, Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn is where it is now. I mean, expect that, there's going to be a little bit
Well,
of activity in
you have a
relationships.
Capricorn Venus.
Yep, and I'm recently split up from my partner of 4 years, and this is happening right on his Venus. So he's having his Venus return with this Pluto combination. It's it's not an easy process.
Not an easy
It's
time.
really
Yeah.
painful. So, but it's also, I think, what I'm really hearing over and over again from people is like this understanding that we have to start valuing ourselves, that we have to be taking care of ourselves, and that there are a lot of people who maybe aren't as interested in who we are, or are as devoted to our self-interest as we need to be. And so it doesn't mean you don't need to be in a relationship with them, but maybe you don't spend as much time with them, or maybe you don't, I've been thinking a lot about concentric circles of friendships. I have Venus in Capricorn, and I love, of course, this is a reviewing time for me. And I think, friendships for me have to do with value. I build up these relationships over long periods of time. There's a lot, Venus and Capricorn invest. It's investment, investment, investment. And to me, the return is like, no matter what it is you go on in your life, you can go to these individuals. I can go to the friends in my life, and I know that no matter what's going on, that they are actually really completely there for me. And that's, that's that long, putting 50 cents in a week, that comes into $1 million at the end of your lifetime. It's this wonderful experience.
All that you've just said, the thing that really stuck with me was the fact that with this pandemic that's gone on for, it's for almost 2 years going on for us, and the end isn't in sight, is that the seclusion that it has put us in, for the most part, is actually an opportunity to be more self-reflective. I mean, there are devices like this that you could be constantly on the phone, or constantly on Zoom, or on your computer, or in connection. But sometimes I'm finding right now for myself that I'm actually shifting, because I'm realizing, oh, I've got all this time and I've been spending it on only a few things, when I could really divide it up more and take advantage of it.
It's so beautiful, because I think it's like, and again, that's like, I mean, what I hear you when you say that is like looking at your life and re-evaluating where you invest your attention and your energy, and that there are some things that you can like let go of that are, that maybe aren't serving you in the best possible way, and other things you can invest in that, you're like, oh my God, I've always wanted to look into this aspect of astrology, or maybe I've always wanted.
Well, I could give you an example of that. I'm in a book club right now. It's on a singular book called All We Can Save, about climate change, written by women, edited by women. And in one of the exercises, it dawned on me, in terms of climate change, and this is a Venus thing, of how, I spent 9 years in the convent in my early adult life, and, had 3 change of clothes, whatever item it was, 3 of, for the most part, not all of them, actually, not even, some things were only 1 or 2, actually, now that I think, I haven't thought about it. But the whole
There's
thing
more behind you right now than you probably had in that room.
Oh God, yes.
Right?
No, I've got a lot of Taurus energy going. I'm close.
No, but I'm just saying, I hear what you're saying is like.
Yeah. But let me finish, because that's not the thing is, what I came to in reading this material and discussing with others and stuff, was I came to that back in those years, I was not longing for any, I had all the physical things that I needed, and was surrounded by beauty. I mean, some of the places I lived, I'm not saying, you know, necessarily we had art people. There was art on the walls. It wasn't, you know, we had gotten vacations, people that, you know, we taught their kids. They had let us use their cabins at Tahoe, Balboa Beach, you know, Santa Catalina, you name it, Santa Cruz. Um, you know, we got tickets to symphonies. People shared what they had with us. And I'm realizing this is apropos to climate change, that we need to reconstruct and do more sharing. You know, like even the automobile thing, was it in Holland, where they've been doing this for decades, sharing bicycles. They leave them in these stands and you need one. We need to do things like
The
that.
cars in San Francisco where it's like, you know, you say, hey, I need this car for an hour. There's one, and you go like, oh, it's right over here, parked at this street. You jump in it for an hour, you do your grocery shopping, and you're done. I mean, there's so many interesting things. And then I've even been thinking, why aren't there more, instead of like doing this whole thing with mortgages and paying exorbitant amounts to banks, why aren't wealthy people joining with their friends and doing like a share of their home, so that there's no mortgage? It's a win-win. There's no mortgage payment, and the person gets to live there in a way that works well, and there's stability in the community, and everyone again wins, and everyone has a stake in it. I mean, we're gonna have to, I mean, this is, I think, maybe these are the inklings of what's gonna happen when Pluto gets into Aquarius and we start seeing like a transformation, the ways we look at how we have our society set up.
And then maybe Michael, you and I need, or others with us, need to sit down and write down and put out some of these plans in other ways besides just on this Zoom. This is Venus. It's about our personal values. It's about our sharing.
And
Wow.
we're both Aquarians. I mean, we're really kind of dedicated towards, you know, we're wanting to, you know, find the ways that we can, you know, it's that next harmonic after Libra. It's like taking the harmony and really like making it so that it really is okay.
Right. Well, and Pluto's going to move into Aquarius in 2 years. And we've got Jupiter and Saturn there now. Jupiter will be leaving soon and going into Pisces at the end of the year.
And you have a lot more planets for it to hit in Aquarius than I do.
They've been hit. Actually, Saturn is Saturn is about to hit my Venus. Oh boy. Okay. Thank you very much. It's done that before. I mean, whoa.
Well, I think on that
note, talked
note,
about a lot of things in this show, but the core of it has been a lot of Venus activity.
Yeah. Any last words of wisdom for what individuals might want to do during this time period?
Well, I think it's important to know the area of your chart, the house area where Capricorn is, and then notice what's going on there, because, you know, Venus, I'm reminded of Venus's, both her positive attributes and her negative ones.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to make Venus angry on a metaphoric level.
On any level.
On any level. You don't want to make her angry.
Actually, no, that's a really good point. During retrograde periods, it's always good to find ways to give kind of offerings, you know, find ways to each of the planets in their, you know, in the ways that we think of them as the gods. So, you know, maybe finding a place of beauty, buying some flowers, right? Bringing them into the environment.
Yes. And finding some peace and quiet. And yeah. And supporting laws that are beneficial for everybody.
Right. And how long does she?
We began with that, actually. We'll end with that.
And how long is she in the retrograde period? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I was hoping you knew.
My memory is a little
Mine
bit
is as well.
a little bit slow there.
How can people find you?
Moonwiseastrology.com, and there is linked to my email, Merrylin LeBlanc @gmail.com.
And if people are liking what you're seeing, please hit subscribe, please hit like, please share with your friends, ask comments. I mean, leave comments, ask questions, suggest some topics. If there's something in astrology you're interested in learning a little bit more about, we'd love to take suggestions from everyone. I can be found at coremichael.com. That's COREMICHAEL.com. Have a good week and many Venusian blessings to you all.
Thanks.
You too, Merrylin.
Bye for now.